I've got to say what an honor it is for me to talk to you, David Zucker. You, among a few other people, have kind of shaped my comedy, my viewpoint of comedy. And again, it's an honor for me to talk to you.
Oh, well, thank you. It's my pleasure. And I especially am favorably disposed to anybody who will tell me how great I am.
Yes. Well, there you go. You're great.
Yeah, thank you. All you need.
Yeah, let's just start off with why we're here. But you have a live stream tonight with Pat Proft.
With Pat Proft.
Yeah.
Pat Proft and I have been friends for, 45 years, 50 years, actually. It's, we've longtime writing partners and kind of, we grew up in the business together. We're from the Midwest together. He's from Minnesota. I'm from Wisconsin. And, my Packers have played his Vikings, but we still remain friends throughout this whole thing.
Yeah. And what is the live stream going to be about?
A lot of people have questions for us about the whole. We've done a truckload of movies, and and also it's kind of we've had a lot of inquiries based on the new Naked Gun being released in August, and I think the trailer dropped today. And so we're getting just a ton of interview requests and questions from people just kind of wondering why we're not involved. So we're glad to answer it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I read a bit about why you're not involved, and I'm kind of curious about that. We did a live stream yesterday where about 7 of us watched the trailer, and I think it came across fairly favorable that people are excited about it. But I'm curious, I guess the story is that they approached you and wanted you basically to endorse it in name only. What was kind of the interaction between you and Paramount about Naked Gun?
Pat and I had written a script originally we called it Naked Gun 4. Nordberg did it, and then we changed that title to Naked Impossible. But we wanted to do it in the style of what we had established, with the Naked Gun, but not set it in a police station in LA. And we wanted to do something different. I didn't even want to direct a third Naked Gun. I want to always do something new, and Pat feels the same way. And so we set it in the world of international espionage. It's not Dirty Harry anymore. It's Mission Impossible and Bourne Identity and Bond. And they're still making those movies today, and they're not making cop movies. And the other thing is, it's hard to replace Leslie Nielsen. And we didn't want to. We just wanted to have a younger character. So in our script, we had a Leslie Nielsen's son, which would have been an Andy Samberg type actor, who's a comic. And we didn't want to do the idea of doing a serious dramatic actor was fresh 40 years ago, or whenever we did the first Naked Gun or the first Police Squad. And we just don't want to go back and do the same thing. So we retitled our script Counterintelligence, spelled with one L and a J, and we want to do that eventually. But Paramount originally had liked our script, and then suddenly we learned that other people had come in and took over the franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it's like watching your child be trotted out in public by your ex-wife and her new husband.
Well, whatever it is, it's I enjoy my life, and this doesn't distress me. It's like all I can say is that's Hollywood. I mean, Hollywood does, it's a big studio, it's a big producer, big stars, and they're doing it a whole different approach than we would have done.
Yeah, I mean, what is your impression of the film?
I haven't seen the trailer. I'm not intending to see the movie. It's just like I don't have any interest in seeing it, so I'm not going to spend any time on it. I've got Pat and I and Mike McManus have written a wonderful film noir comedy set in 1949, and it's a wonderful story, and we're hoping to get into pre-production in that soon. So, we're doing our own stuff. We don't want to go back and do what we did before, no matter who they get to replace Leslie Nielsen. We're just not interested in it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I certainly understand that. And so I want to ask you a question about comedy today and
Sure.
comedy in general, but what is your feeling about the state of comedy today? I'll tell you mine, and I'll see if I'm anywhere close, but I feel like comedy today has become safe,
Yeah.
where we're not, to me, I've always liked finding that line and barely crossing it, or coming real close to it. But it seems like today, you can't even define the line. You can't even get close to the line. And it
Well,
just feels like comedy is watered down.
well, I think audiences still appreciate good comedy, good stories, good characters, but it's the studio boardrooms and the studio executives who are a frightened bunch. I wrote a piece for Commentary magazine, which was reprinted a lot, about the 9%ers, and it's about how kind of PC has ruined comedy to a large extent, and because 9% of the population doesn't have a sense of humor, it's kind of ruining it for everybody else. And so a lot of the studio executives are frightened. So there's no good comedy. And I think a lot of people don't really know how to do it. That's why I put together a course, which we call Master Crash, which is, kind of describes our 15 rules of comedy. And the 15th rule is, of course, there are no rules, but, there is a discipline behind it and a method to it. So, and a lot of people think that it's easy and they can do it. Now, that's why I don't think there's any good film comedy out there, but there is good comedy. What makes me laugh, people ask me if they care about what I think, but the Impractical Jokers are what makes me laugh. South Park, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, those guys are really talented. And they're original. And also, the Wayans, they're doing Scary Movie 6 or whatever. I did a couple of them. Those guys are really talented. Many years ago, when Mike Myers did a spoof of James Bond, which he called Austin Powers, that was great. It worked. And none of these guys use our rules, but they don't have to. They're original and brilliant on their own. It's just when somebody tries to copy what we do that I think it runs into trouble, and it just comes off as stale.
I mean, why do you think that? If people are copying you in a formula, what do you think they're getting wrong?
Well, they don't know the rules. People don't realize there's a lot of discipline to it. When we write an Airplane, a Naked Gun, or our scary movies, or BASEketball, we definitely follow these rules, and nobody knows about them. But it's only when they're trying to do our style, that Naked Gun style of comedy, that they could run into trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing improv comedy for about 30 years, and I in a way, I feel like we've ruined comedy in the sense
I don't know.
I'll tell you specifically what I'm thinking. It's this idea that you just need to stand on stage and say something funny, and then that's all you have to do. And I think I learned 30 years ago that it's a little bit more to that, and that maybe Airplane felt improvised, but it really is.
It wasn't
finely curated library of jokes, basically.
Right. We write a script and we fight over every word, and it's exact. In fact, when I look at a page, it's no speech can be more than 6 lines. If it's more than 6 lines, I scratch my head and I go, I gotta cut something out. And then it also takes, directing, some kind of directing knowledge of when something's working, and the actors can't try to be funny, otherwise it's a joke on a joke, which is one of our rules, and you just have to. it just takes a lot of work. I mean, directing is mainly problem solving. You know, when you write the script, that's most of the work is that. And directing is just making sure that the actors are carrying out, you know, whatever's on the page.
Mhm. I mean, do you, aside from taking your master crash course, is there a piece of advice you would give young filmmakers who want to make a comedy?
Well, I would tell them, go after, try to do something original. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, we've done The Naked Gun. It's like that was done. You know, the first Naked Gun. I don't think anybody's going to surpass that because it was fresh, it was
Mhm.
original, and then two and a half was good, but you know, I don't think it was as good as the original, and but that's why Pat Proft and Mike McManus and I thought we don't want to do Naked Gun anymore. We want to do a fresh idea. The Naked Gun is a 40-year-old idea, and you know, to use an old guy was really fresh and clever in 1988, but it's not anymore.
Yeah. I mean, is there value in looking back at the great comedies?
Oh, sure it
Certainly
is.
yeah.
I think people could learn from, you know, the pace. If you
Mhm.
want to do spoof, I think the pace has to be a rapid pace, and the story is important. And I learned this by making mistakes myself. And if you don't have a very strong character in the first act who has a internal problem and then must solve some external problem, then you're not going to have a satisfying ending, and the audience won't care at the end. It'll just, the third act then becomes a joke book.
Mhm.
I mean, there's a lot involved in it, and that's those are just, you can't not follow those rules. Those aren't any rules that I've made up.
Mhm.
It's just the three act structure. Move to have people. It's to have people sit through a 85-minute movie. You must have that character development, and
Yeah.
people have to really be rooting for the character. And
Yeah.
I haven't gotten it right every time. And when I didn't, the movies just were in the theaters for 2 weeks and gone.
Yeah, I mean, was that some I've heard that that might have been a problem with Top Secret.
Oh,
That
it was definitely a problem with Top Secret. However, you know, Top Secret, I realize that it's this cult classic now, and
yeah.
it has the best jokes that we've ever done. And I think that when people watch it at home, they don't even realize that, you know, the character doesn't have a resolution at the end. And, you know, did you read, Val Kilmer did his autobiography a few years ago,
Yeah, no, I
and
haven't read it.
he said he still doesn't know what Top Secret was about. So, but you know, he was fun to work with and everything. But you know, it was both Top Secret and BASEketball, which are just such great movies now.
Yeah.
But at the time, they didn't really open at the box office. And you know, one of my rules are, don't blame somebody else. It's, you know, it's your own fault if your
Yeah.
movie flops. So you know, I just don't think I really observed those. Even though I thought I learned the lesson, we didn't quite for Top Secret or BASEketball.
Yeah, I gotta say that I loved Top Secret from the first
Yeah,
time I
it's so fun, and
it is.
it's got such great, you know, the underwater fight scene and the backwards scene. It's really a cool movie.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You know, in terms of comedy, I feel like that the direction that comedy has taken, the wrong direction to comedy has taken, has also invaded kind of other genres. That for some reason Hollywood is staying away from the classics, or at least encouraging people to like kind of understand why the classics are the classic, why Hitchcock is Hitchcock. And it just feels like nowadays film and movies, instead of being progressive, where it's getting regressive.
Well,
Where
it's because the studios are playing it safe.
Mhm.
They're only going for franchises, big stars, big special effects, you know, and Tom Cruise movies. And but I have to say I
Yeah,
love Tom Cruise movies, but you know, it's that's the only thing the studios are doing now is these big expensive movies, uh, and I think that includes Naked Gun 4. And so, but I understand why the studio wants to do that. They want to
Mhm.
stick to, a big star and a big producer,
Yeah.
and a big name, which is Naked Gun.
Right.
But unfortunately, it kind of that excluded my team from doing it. So, but we have our own movies that we're doing. We've repurposed our Naked Gun script, which I mentioned. So we're going to still work to do our own movies.
Yeah, and that reminds me of another question, but is a lot of it the economics too, that comedies just don't make as much money as they did in the past, especially
Well,
especially with streaming?
I don't know about that. I mean, any good movie, whether it's a comedy or a Tom Cruise action thriller, if it's good and audiences can follow a story and get into the characters, I think any movie can do well. But it's just that I think, a lot of people are doing comedy who really don't know, especially what they're doing.
Mhm.
I don't know what it is. However, when I mention, the Impractical Jokers, those guys know what they're doing. And
Yeah,
Matt Stone and Trey Parker, oh my God, those guys are so talented.
yeah.
And I just recently talked with Stone and Parker, and they love the Impractical Jokers too. So, we're all fans. And if you haven't, occasionally I talk to somebody who hasn't seen Impractical Jokers, and everybody's heard of South Park,
Yeah.
but I tell them to go watch Impractical Jokers.
Yeah, and what do you think it is? What did they have that the average?
Well, they're original. They're doing their own
Mhm.
idea. Stone and Parker didn't take over somebody else's franchise, and they're just this is a homegrown original idea.
Yeah,
And because they thought up these concepts, they're the best at it.
yeah.
And no one could take over South Park. It's those guys' particular genius that does it.
Yeah. So you're basically saying it's, don't say we're going to make our own airplane or our
No,
own.
yeah, don't. I mean, people have approached us to let's do Airplane 3 or Airplane 4 or make it a musical. I don't want to go back and do stuff that I've already done.
Mhm.
I want to do something new, want to do a fresh approach.
Yeah. Which brings me to my next question, and going back into the past. But um, I was in high school when Police Squad came out,
Mhm.
and I remember it being the greatest thing I'd ever seen. But at the same time, I remember that last episode going, "Oh, this is not exactly this is not exactly great." And was it always meant to be 6 episodes? And how did that come about?
Well, it was meant to be it was we made a deal to do 6 on the air, and the network couldn't cancel it fast enough. It got low rate, and this was with only 3 networks.
Yeah.
We still flopped. So I think it was. I always say all my flops were just ahead of its time. So I can always kind of fall back on that. But it was, it had no laugh track, and the head of the network kind of asked us very nicely, could you put on a laugh track? But we couldn't do it. We
No.
felt bad for the network which gave us this opportunity, but it was so not a sitcom. It wasn't what TV was doing. And when we did Airplane, it was not what studios were doing. That's why it was so hard to pitch. It took us 5 years to
Yeah.
get Airplane financed because it was a comedy without comedians. I mean, it was crazy. And then 3 unknown and first time directors. It just, it was amazing that the Paramount executives at that time were brilliant. Michael Eisner, Jeff Katzenberg,
Oh yeah.
Frank Mancuso, Barry Diller, and they let us do this, and
Yeah.
it's like more credit to them. And it was a time when studios did take risks. And in our book, which we did the whole story of Airplane, called "Surely You Can't Be Serious," the true history of Airplane, or whatever it was. And we say how, and Katzenberg it says in it that Paramount Studios at the time, they were willing to risk failure. And I just think the studios today, for whatever reason, they're making fewer pictures. I don't think they want to risk failure. So in 1980, Paramount could say, well, we're releasing 15 movies this year. We can roll the dice on this little picture called Airplane.
Mm-hmm.
And they were right. We were glad that we bore them out, and
Yeah.
they were right.
Yeah, I mean, I read Eisner's book about his Paramount days, and
Yeah.
Beverly Hills Cop came out of that as well.
Oh yeah, no, Eisner was great. And
Yeah.
when we didn't have that much contact with him during the filming, but he was the one who saw the script, and every other studio had turned it down.
Mm-hmm.
And this was just this corporate studio think, and Eisner went against that grain and rolled the dice with us. And so when the book came out, the day after the book was released, when I had a copy in my hand, I made an appointment, went to see him at the office, and personally gave him a copy, signed it. And I thought I'd be there for 10 minutes, but he spent an hour with me, which was so great. And we just talked over old times, because, both of us have been through a lot since then. So it was nice. And we just, everybody complains about moronic studio executives, but these guys were great.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I could go on about just those early Eisner days, even at Disney.
Yeah.
Last question, but I was always curious about that transition of Police Squad to Naked Gun, partially because there was a tonal shift, I believe, when going to film. Like Police Squad was deadly serious. It was meant to come across as very dramatic, while I think Naked Gun came across a little more whimsical, a little more, Drebin was kind of a buffoon, a clown of some sort. What was the discussion like in terms of how the tone of Naked Gun versus Police Squad?
Oh, definitely. But I don't think we were, all that knowledgeable about, well, now for a movie, we have to do this. I think we had learned a lot from Dale Launer doing Ruthless People, about, having there be a character and an arc and a 3-act structure. And for TV, all you need to do is a half hour at a time. It doesn't really teach you anything. And so for the movie, we realized that Frank Drebin had to be more of a fleshed out character. He's got to be more well-rounded. And so in the Police Squad, he didn't have any emotion. There was no girl. So in Naked Gun, we had him, he came back from Beirut, shattered because his girlfriend had broken up with him. And so he had a problem. And we had that. And that was the most important thing, that he had this problem that was solved by his meeting Priscilla Presley. And then he did save the queen, but we learned that the audience doesn't really care about that. They cared about that the boy and girl get together at the end. So that's the difference between doing a movie and doing a TV show. And, as cardboard as Frank Drebin was in the series, he just had to be more human in the movie. So, and that's what you have to do in a movie. It's not just jokes. I mean, jokes are important, but you have to have the audience involved in the character. I mean, there's just a lot that goes into it. I've learned a lot, learned mistakes, obviously.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
Sure.
So the live stream tonight with Pat Proft, how do we find that? Where would that be?
I wish I knew.
Yeah, I think the note I have is it's Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram. I don't know any of the technical stuff.
Okay. Well, we'll have it in the description of the.
But it should be funny because whenever Pat and I get together, we have a lot of fun.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, believe me, there's millions of questions I have.
And Pat himself is amazing. When Leslie Nielsen died, there were all these obituaries and all these things saying how brilliant he was, and he was, and they quoted all these lines. every line. They quoted lines like,
Mhm.
like a midget at a urinal, I had to stay on my toes, so, and those were all Proft lines. Every one of them was written by Proft, those kind of clever Frank Drebin voiceover lines.
No,
So, and Pat is the best joke writer I've ever worked with, and I've
mhm.
worked with some good ones.
Yeah. And then you have Master Crash coming up,
And
or is it?
mastercrash.com is, what we see other people trying to do this particular style. And, obviously this is not for Stone and Parker or the Impractical Jokers, but
Mhm.
it's for anybody I think could learn this who want to do a spoof in our style. So, I talk about the 15 rules and examples, and it's really fascinating. I mean, as I did it, it was so much fun, and it's not as seriously done as Master Class. I think we're a lot more informal. There's a dog running through the frame, and we don't cut for anything. So
Absolutely.
it's just there's a lot of funny things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, I want to thank you for this time. Very insightful. You
Sure.
answered a couple of my questions,
Oh,
and
good. Okay.
grateful for that. So, yeah, thank you very much, and yeah, have fun tonight on the live stream.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Moving